Alright, hello ladies and gentlemen, Heavyclone here and how y'all doing, bringing you guys another Fortnite video. So with the recent Summer Skirmish event taking place as the first official Fortnite eSports event, and seeing as how it was viewed by many as having failed horribly, it got me thinking about why exactly it was a failure. So the reason in my opinion is that Fortnite is not eSports ready in any way, despite what people seem to be saying. Now let me explain exactly why by first going over what it takes for a game to become an eSport. So first off, something that didn't really exist as recently as 5 years ago, developer support is arguably the #1 factor in a game becoming a successful esport title. This ranges from listening to feedback and advice from your community to providing regular updates and bug fixes alongside using some of your marketing budget to supplement competitions. So I think we can all agree that Fortnite definitely has this going for them. The game brings in insane amounts of cash which they can funnel into advertising and funding for events. In fact, they've already announced that they've pledged $100 million towards creating competitive esports events for Fortnite. Also, it's important to state that Epic is very good at constantly updating their game and making sure bugs are getting fixed quickly. Secondly, the thing most people don't realize when it comes to esports is that it's only possible because people are watching. People watching, aka community support, is the reason why companies are willing to invest into and fund players and gaming teams to go to competitions and play the game full time to advertise their brand. If a game is going to become an esport, it needs thousands of people to be watching, and Fortnite definitely has that going for it. I mean, it has amazing viewership on Twitch, and past tournaments have had hundreds of thousands of viewers, though those events weren't really considered esports events. Not to mention, most competitive players that have been signed on to esports teams have large followings already, so those viewers would definitely want to see their favorite streamer compete. So far so good, Fortnite seems to be on track to become an esport. The third thing an esports worthy game needs is a significant skill gap. A skill gap can be defined by a skill ceiling and a skill floor, each of those being the highest and lowest skill levels one can have in the game. Every esports worthy game needs to have a high skill ceiling in order to succeed, meaning that it needs certain mechanics or strategies which are very difficult to master. The more, the better. Also, an esports ready game cannot have very many random elements to it. It needs to only reward players' skill, otherwise anyone could win an event through sheer luck. You need to earn your victory. For a game to be tournament ready, it needs to be hard to master and skill based, otherwise why bother putting in thousands of hours practicing when some child can come along and beat you with no prior training just by getting lucky. And this is where Fortnite honestly falls short. Fortnite is simply too focused on luck-based elements and randomness. From its core mechanics to its battle royale nature, Fortnite is pretty much the opposite of an esports ready game. The first major flaw is the bloom-based shooting model. Now I know I've covered this a lot in my video about the SMG meta, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but basically introducing luck to one of the most important mechanics of any shooter, the shooting, is a great way to severely lower the skill ceiling. Also, strangely enough, Epic seems to have doubled down on their desire to embrace the bloom by shifting the meta towards SMGs, which has further increased the luck involved in gunfights. The next big issue revolves around building. Building is generally regarded as the biggest skill gap in Fortnite, and due to its high skill nature, it has evolved a lot since release due to the fact that players are getting better and better and finding new ways to use it. Now that is fine and all, but as a result, the material cap and harvesting rates also need to be adjusted to account for the changing meta. Currently, the cap for a material type is 999 and harvesting takes a very long time. This was perfect back when most players didn't build much and materials weren't expended very quickly. Nowadays though, when two skilled players meet, it's common to see them use up 999 mats in just that fight. Afterwards, they're left with nothing, and since it takes so long to collect materials and get back to max wood or max whatever, they often get killed by someone else who pushes them while they have no mats. What I suggest is that the resource cap be reduced to something along the lines of 500 and the resource collection speed be much faster. That way, material conservation in a fight becomes important, but as soon as you finish that fight, you can quickly get back up to 500 mats to be ready to fight your next opponent on even ground. Finally, at its core, the battle royale genre is not suited to be an esport. I'm not saying it's impossible. I think PUBG pulled it off relatively well, but I believe that some iteration would still be needed to the battle royale genre for it to become a true esport. For Fortnite, however, a significant amount of change would be needed. Normalization of loot drops would be essential, meaning that weapon rarities and most of the new crazy weapons would be removed. This would make it so that players don't have better loot than other players most of the time. And also, some way of getting players to want to fight each other would be needed. This is more for the viewer experience though, because if the game is a bunch of people camping and avoiding each other like in the Summer Skirmish events, then people won't want to watch an esport like that, and that won't get viewers essentially. And esports that don't get viewers fail. Honestly, just looking at how the Summer Skirmish event went down tells us a lot about whether or not Fortnite is esports ready. You had players dropping and having terrible loot, then dying to players with good loot. Meanwhile, other players fought each other, then the winner was easily picked off since he had no more materials, which caused players to want to avoid each other at all costs because they didn't want to lose their resources. I mean, you literally had players sitting in the storm for as long as possible to avoid fighting. Then, when you get to the late game, everyone just sits in there one by one until the storm forces them to fight. It's a camp fest. Maybe if the matches worked on a point system where kills give you points as well as the place you finish, so that players would actually have an incentive to go out and get kills, it could solve some of these problems. This is just speculation though, and not really the focus of this video. So those are the reasons why I believe Fortnite is not esports ready. If you don't agree with me, feel free to try and convince me in the comments down below. I'm always willing to listen to other people's points of view. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video, enjoy my cringy outro, and I'll see you in the next video. My name's Heaven Clone, and I'm not really known. I make Fortnite vids for all of you kids. If you like, why not sub? And hit the bell button. If you don't, you a scrub who won't get notifications. Shit, while you're at it, this vid, you better like it. If you made it this far, you're quite bizarre. I'll see you next time with my crazy rhymes. I hope I made you cringe as much as Orange Shirt Kid.